Hi everyone, our project is called The Smile Factory Work at Disneyland, and this is by Jennifer Colon, Diane Lombardo, and Nathan Budoff. Case Overview. Disneyland, the self-proclaimed happiest place on earth, holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. Happy, carefree childhood memories are associated with the amusement park, as the product here is emotion, laughter, and well-being. The responsibility of providing guests with these feelings rests on the shoulders of the park employees. The experience just wouldn't be the same without their cheery dispositions, polite and friendly attitudes, and excellent customer service with a smile. Disneyland employees are expected to deal with a lot and get paid very little. They are constantly watched by hidden security, are sorted into their various roles and job categories based on methods unknown to them, and must conform to strict appearance rules. Walt Disney himself wouldn't even be able to work at Disneyland today without shaving off his signature mustache.
Jennifer Colon completed her undergraduate degree in psychology and is currently completing her graduate degree at the School of Professional Studies, majoring in industrial organizational psychology. Educationally, she has gained knowledge to empathize with clients, analyze, and problem solve. She has a well-versed background with employment, having worked for the Bank of New York in the Human Resource Department, the New York City Department of Corrections as a correctional officer, and currently at the City University of New York as a program specialist and adjunct instructor for both college level and high school level students. In having such wide variety in her work history, she has diverse knowledge of people and organizational culture while having developed an increased ability to communicate effectively and display understanding and garner trust from a wide range of individuals during a variety of situations. Jennifer has high standards in ethics and values, having the ability to strategize and develop action plans for necessary change amongst one or more individuals in various types of organizations.
Diane Lombardo completed a bachelor's degree in health sciences and is currently completing a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology at City University of New York, School of Professional Studies. The coursework she has completed has given her an in-depth understanding of OD concepts and has equipped her with the knowledge necessary for developing interventions that help organizations and individuals change successfully. Having a strong background in holistic health and wellness has enabled Diane to understand the importance of considering the whole person and how he or she interacts with his or her environment when implementing change. Diane believes having a high degree of emotional intelligence is of paramount importance when dealing with both individual and organizational change, and believes her empathy and ability to understand others is her strongest suit. She remains committed to continually developing these skills over time. Diane currently works as an executive administrative assistant to the CEO of her organization and serves on the Change Committee, where she works with others to explore ways to change the culture, technology, and workflow of the company for the better by listening to employee suggestions, vetting solutions, and by completing proof of concept exercises for possible implementation.
Nathan Budoff earned a bachelor's degree in fine art from the University of Massachusetts and a master's degree in painting from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Several years later, he graduated as a Juris Doctor from the Law School at the University of Puerto Rico. He is currently studying for a master's degree at the CUNY School of Professional Studies, majoring in industrial and organizational psychology. As part of a varied and multifaceted life, Budoff has been a professor, a writer, a translator, and a professional artist. He maintains all of these roles currently and is employed as the English Test Development Manager at the College Board Puerto Rico and Latin America office. Budoff was raised in Massachusetts and lives in Puerto Rico, and he is fully bilingual. It is this rich variety of experience and the understanding of individuals' needs and desires in a variety of cultural contexts that makes him a particularly capable consultant in the organizational setting. He's able to bring both an intuitive and a much more analytic approach to the situations he reviews, and offers the creativity and independent thinking so characteristic of his artistic background. Budoff's vision grants an opportunity for an organization to dramatically reconsider its ambience, employment practices, and operating procedures.
Organizational development is a professional practice that focuses on increasing an organization's effectiveness and productivity while making it more rewarding, satisfying, and engaging. It is focused on change within an organization with a goal of one or more of the following: increase in profits, increase in production and effectiveness, to improve customer and employee satisfaction, increase team development and individual work performance, amongst many others. Organizational development is not based on one approach that would work for every organization. Instead, OD practices a wide variety of methods, procedures, perspectives, and approaches with an overall focus on structural elements of an organization. Organizations might implement other varying forms of improvement, such as management consulting or training and development. However, this differs from OD. Other forms of what might be considered consulting have specific focuses. For example, an OD practitioner uses relevant processes and techniques to make changes function effectively, as opposed to using expertise in an area as would be done in management consulting. The main difference between the two are advising on content versus process. Similarly, when we consider training and development, while OT practitioners might utilize this method as part of an intervention, solely focusing on training and development only offers training activities for members of an organization. Organizational development doesn't only focus on members of an organization learning new strategies. In fact, organizational change can be done where members of the organization are not involved at all. The goal of the OT is to implement change that is developed for long-term effectiveness even after the intervention period is over and the OD practitioner is no longer physically involved. There are many ways to look at the overall idea of OD and similarly many ways to approach it. We can consider the systems theory approach, classic organizational development consulting approach, diagnostic approach, or even dialogic approach, but the choice is based on the change attempting to be made and the necessary steps to be involved. Some approaches adopt ways that an OD practitioner has minimal say, or might be the deciding factor for the overall process, or there are approaches in which the organization and the practitioner work together throughout the process. The overall responsibility of an OD consultant is to facilitate an intervention by means of entry and contracting, gathering data, diagnosing and feedback, deciding on an intervention and implementing said intervention, and finally, evaluating the outcomes. Once the work of the OD practitioner is done, he or she may want to facilitate follow-up meetings to ensure effectiveness in sustaining the change. After gathering facts about Disneyland, we have decided to use a combination of structured dialogic with a diagnostic approach, which combines a holistic and adaptive approach to increase job satisfaction and promote an autonomous and equal working environment. The dialogic approach tries to help organization members raise their own conscientiousness of how reality is being constructed in their system with the purpose of creating alignment and support for change. It is a mindset and practice where practitioners design and facilitate inquiry-based processes that rely on shared meaning to result in transformational change. Utilizing this approach would allow us to include upper management together with employees in the field in the realization that change is needed. Additionally, we want to ensure that each member of the organization is comfortable with expressing themselves and are doing it in an honest fashion. Therefore, anonymity will be part of the process as well. The diagnosis approach will allow us to formally investigate objective data and analyze to make a diagnosis and recommendations for problem solving, and gathering this data in different forms can allow for higher accuracy. Because there is tension amongst the employees at the lower levels, this approach would allow employees to understand why they behave in certain ways and allows them to think differently and ultimately choose new behaviors. In utilizing both dialogic and diagnostic approach, we will be able to gain knowledge that is co-created through objective data and emergent subjective realities during the process, while using expert recommendations and self-organized solutions from organization members. Disneyland is gaining large profits and has great customer satisfaction. Employees seem to be engaged in doing their job, but at the expense of their well-being and how they truly feel. The organization is lacking in employee job satisfaction and is currently in need of increased communication, interaction, understanding, and feedback, which OD can provide. Organizational development can also increase employee motivation and development, which in turn can increase job satisfaction. With the help of OD, the organization can see positive changes throughout the organization as a whole.
Preliminary analysis of the issue. Because of their value to the organization, improvements should be made regarding employee work environment and culture and employee satisfaction. More time and energy should be directed toward enhancing the employee experience and creating a work environment where being genuinely happy, cheerful, and satisfied comes naturally. This is in sharp contrast to the current system in place. A deep, dark secret exists among the casting directors at Disney. When prospective employees are interviewed, they interview for a job at Disneyland, not a specific one. Personnel decides what particular job they will eventually occupy. What job employees end up in carries great significance and weight in Disneyland, as they will be judged by all based on their position. Higher status positions garner more respect from peers, as well as perks like better fitting uniforms. Movement across jobs is not encouraged by park management, but some does occur, mostly within an area and job category. These exceptions offer a small glimmer of hope for those working at the social margins of the park, and perhaps keeps them on the job longer than might otherwise be expected. Symptoms that stem from the current system that is in place paint a picture of unhappy and unsatisfied employees. As the case study states, there are times in all employees' careers when they put themselves on automatic pilot, go robot, can't feel a thing, lapse into a dream, go into a trance, or otherwise check out while still on duty. This sort of emotional numbness is something that can be prevented by making changes to the current system the organization has in place, where more thought and consideration is given to the well-being of Disneyland's employees. Preliminary recommendations. In order to ensure that the culture of the company influences employees positively, two things should be considered: hiring practices and a bottom-up approach. As far as hiring practices go, with the current system in place, employees are put through a rigorous interview and training process, yet they are unaware of what job they are applying for, nor are they aware of why they were selected for specific job categories. The effect theory states that the narrower the gap between individual expectations about the job and realities of the job itself, the higher the chances are of individuals being satisfied. More transparency in the hiring process is recommended. At the very least, it is suggested that applicants be able to apply for specific roles within the organization. Including job descriptions and required qualifications for each role would be helpful as well, so candidates have a better understanding of what will be required of them. Increased transparency throughout the hiring process will also help minimize the chance of personal bias playing a role in the decision-making process. The current system seems to rely on managerial intuition instead of a process based on facts and fair decisions. Leaving candidates in the dark about why they were chosen for certain roles leaves room for much speculation about the process and leaves the door wide open for favoritism and nepotism to occur. According to Alder and Gilbert, hiring the morally right way requires that hiring managers engage in a thorough, systematic process to obtain as much valid information as possible about job applicants and the requirements of the job in order to identify those applicants who are most qualified for the position and make hiring decisions accordingly without regard to personal bias or self-interest. As a general rule, a rational process based on an examination of the facts as they can be determined about each candidate has a better chance of succeeding in selecting the best candidate than a process based on managerial intuition.
The organization must think from a bottom-up approach. Employees at the bottom of the organization are the ones who must provide the actual services. A shift in the mindset and orientation to all involved is essential to the success of the staff, so the need to move from traditional models and flip it upside down where the role of leadership is to support the ideas of the staff is imperative. We would implement surveys to determine where job dissatisfaction is coming from and how the employees are being negatively impacted from the current trends, make strategic plans for the necessary changes, and implement them. Once the changes are in place, conducting regular team meetings to focus on the outcomes of the change and ensure it is increasing job satisfaction. Allowing employees to provide feedback can encourage job satisfaction because they are being heard and concern for them as employees are being shown by upper management. In a case study with Royal Columbian Hospital, both diagnostic and dialogic were implemented with the bottom-up approach. Surveys were implemented for the same purposes, and workshops were conducted as part of the intervention with annual follow-ups. It successfully allowed everyone to see things from a different perspective and thus creating positive change. Overall, consideration must be given for more autonomy and equality. The 5 features of the job characteristics model states that a job can be affected by the following: skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, feedback, or evaluation. Under the current culture, some employees receive more incentives than others, some are treated better than others based on title, and there is minimal room for advancement opportunities. Organizations that exhibit characteristics such as having high degree of autonomy, providing opportunities for employees, nurturing relationships amongst employees, showing interest in and concern for their employees, recognizing employees' accomplishment and holding employees in high regard result in more satisfied workers.
As we have stated, we're proposing a blended diagnostic and dialogic OD process so that all of the stakeholders can be actively involved in the full process, and solutions and innovations will be broadly supported by all involved as they develop. The contracting stage of the process will confirm the conditions, stages, and timelines for the intervention. While this is a dialogic process, it still requires clarity. We propose a process that will last for 1 year, allowing us to collaborate with the organization and many of its members over the cycle of a full season at Disneyland, with the understanding that given the nature of the park, in the course of the year, the conditions in the organization can be very different at different times. Most of this time will be dedicated to data gathering, largely in a collaborative way, starting with the holiday season and extending through the summer season. This is the most essential part of the process, as it allows all of us to more clearly understand exactly what the situation is and gives us a clear opportunity to adjust or correct different factors. The process is a collaborative process, but we have as a clear goal major transformational changes. As Dr. Gilpin Jackson says, dialogic OD as a distinct approach has made the linkage between OD and transformational change clearer. Transformational change emerges when actors self-organize and co-construct and sustain generative images of their futures. This specific data gathering process will also be hybrid. We feel it's important to apply certain practices that will allow for individualized answers for private access to individuals, given the hierarchical system that has dominated at Disneyland for decades. This will help foster a frank and open dialogue. To this end, we will conduct interviews with select employees from all levels of employment at the facility. In addition, we will administer an anonymous survey to all employees on several occasions during the course of the data gathering. The surveys will be administered on 4 occasions during the process in recognition of the changing conditions at the park. We're not sure how the changing daily conditions may aggravate or ameliorate conditions that different participants work under. In addition, we will organize voluntary discussion groups on a regular basis at times where at least a considerable number of employees are not actively working, and we'll vary these times so that they're accessible to different individuals. These meetings will be completely voluntary, and they will be organized with an initial theme, but with the fluidity to address other concerns that may arise. These meetings are for data gathering, although we recognize that many stakeholders may feel uncomfortable speaking out. We also intend for them to create habits of thinking and discussing that will enrich further steps in the process and that function as part of a dialogic OD process. Towards the end of this data gathering process, we'll organize a World Cafe with the broadest possible participation of employees from all levels of the organization. A World Cafe is, and in quotes, an intervention designed to bring large groups together in the discussion of issues important to them, according to Anderson. It is a process that integrates the values of dialogic OD. Dialogic OD as a distinct approach has made a linkage that we all see towards developing processes of change so that the change is generated within the organization and isn't imposed completely from the outside. This is a key event in the ongoing process to develop a broad exchange and encounter new possibilities in a collaborative context. In the closing stages of the World Cafe, as findings and conclusions of that process are being discussed, summary conclusions of ours from the surveys, discussion groups, and interviews will be offered to the group to further enrich the discussion and allow for the broadest possible discussion. Following the World Cafe, and integrating interview, discussion group, and survey results, we'll present our diagnosis. This is another aspect of integrating the two approaches to OD. As Oswick says, the move from dialogue to diagnosis involves a switch from an emphasis on changing mindsets and what people think to an emphasis on changing behavior and what people do. This will not be a statistical diagnosis that we present, and in keeping with the dialogic approach which we are integrating into this intervention, our diagnosis will be both a summary of issues and priorities that dominate the World Cafe and a focused analysis of issues and concerns that dominate in the interviews, focus groups, and surveys. This diagnosis will be presented to all of the stakeholders in the organizations, in private meetings with executive officials, but also in broad open meetings with employees of the organization. These meetings will be coordinated roughly 9 months after the initiation of our intervention. They should have the quality of town meetings. They should be open to all members of the community, facilitate equal expression of all participants, and be guided by parliamentary procedure to maintain order and civility in the discussion. In these meetings, decisions will be made about specific interventions to be implemented to attend to situations that have become clearer after the extensive processes we've executed up to that point. Once the town meetings have been executed, have been realized, these meetings will be about specific interventions to attend to situations that have become clearer. As said, as consultants, we'll provide certain specific suggestions within this discursive context, but we're recommending a process that depends much more extensively on all of the expressions of the stakeholders. The decisions made at the meetings about specific interventions or proposed interventions will be understood to be recommendations that then will be evaluated by the administration of the organization. We understand that the organization's executives retain the decision as to the viability of implementing each of these specific interventions. We also understand that this process, due to its collaborative nature, is one that will generate practical and effective measures and that will be in the best interest of all involved, including the administration. Upon the completion of the 1-year time frame, our intervention will be closed, but we will participate in at least 2 meetings to evaluate the whole process. One will be with the executives of the organization, and a second will be with a broad selection of employees from different parts of the organization. These meetings will discuss our intervention and will be an opportunity for us to gather concrete information and concrete reactions about the process and people's different perceptions of the successes and weaknesses of our intervention. Following completion of the intervention, a web page will be established summarizing the process in a precise and neutral way and integrating a forum for ongoing discussion of these issues and to be able to discuss in a broad way the success, the progress of the interventions. We also recommend that should there be interest on the part of the organization, we would favor annual interventions in the future in the forms of an extended meetings or possibly annual retreats to continue to the discussions and to also evaluate the progress and try to sustain the interventions that have been implemented based on our initial intensive action. And that is our proposed intervention. Thanks so much.